All right, hey everyone, welcome to the Damon Morrison podcast. This is week 3, and this week we're going to be taking a look at problematic texts and strategies to repair comprehension. And so this week, the text I chose to look at is a highly complex philosophical text called The Bet by Antoine Chekhov. This text challenged the idea of whether or not capital punishment is worse than life imprisonment. This is a great text to raise questions about what is morally correct and compares and contrasts the two ideas in an amazing story. It offers it and raises a lot of concerns and creates an easy way to begin a lively discussion and debate. But this text isn't a simple text to read because it's one that uses an array of vocabulary that isn't necessarily innate. It provides many terms and ideas that may not be familiar, that maybe kids might even not be familiar with, and cause the reader to miscomprehend or completely misunderstand what is being transcribed within the story. Um, this could cause some ambiguity while reading this text if one isn't carefully to ensure that the students are equipped to explicitly understand some of these terms that the reader needs to know in order to truly grasp the immensity of the story's intended meaning and purpose. This is why it's essential that I incorporate a few different specifically tailored guided reading strategies to be implemented prior, during, and after the reading of the text. I would first start off beginning with classroom clustering of what key terms and ideas that will be relevant within the basic story, sort of like what is a bet? Um, what are some ways that people have been exposed to making bet within their lives in their past and prior experiences? What is involved in the bet? Money? Um, is it something other beyond that? And also the underlying concepts that go along with making bets. Um, I would have this written out on the board with bubbles connecting it to the underlying word. Just to give them some insight and contextual ideas about what we'll be reading about within the story. So having basically bet up there and then connecting these ideas kind of in a brainstorm type of fashion. Um, I would then employ the students to do the same thing with small groups using the classroom example we created with the term bet with a list of difficult yet key terms that will be highlighted with green within the text. We then come back as a class and make a class definition out of the small brainstorming and clustering of concepts. And as you see in here, I have them highlighted in green and in pink. But we would go over the green ones in particular first because those are ones that I think they would be able to somewhat get some idea about. Um, After that, I would then take 5 extremely difficult the pink highlighted terms found within the text, and have the class take a guess using example sentences that I've created if they can figure out what they mean. I would then have them write out the actual definitions of the words that I've prepared and compare it to what they have come up with. So again, you would see that I have had some of these ones in pink and greens, and just to give you an idea, the ones in green that I have in them go over would be like capital punishment, immoral, universally, humane, degrees, ensued. The pink ones would be like obsolete, a priori, incessantly, capricious, rapture. So words that you might not necessarily know or students might not come in contact, especially within a class that I would be working within, I would believe, for learning support, people within special ed classes, possibly in English. So that would be a way that I go about that. Then I would take these lists of terms, refer back to what we came up with within the text. I would then ask a few anticipation guided questions to help facilitate a mind frame that revolves around the story, like how much of your life would you be willing to give up for $1 million? Would you rather spend the rest of your life in jail or face capital punishment? Some of these things that you'll see within the story that we're going to read. And then at what point is time more valuable than money? So getting an idea, gauge kind of where their thinking is, their thought process, so that they can understand the thought process within the story, which compares this within the story that they'll read. Then I'd have them do a read aloud of the story in class and pause each time we came upon one of the highlighted key terms and make sure that we all understood from our work what they meant within the context of the story. So once we get there, we'll pause, make sure we go over what it means so that they'll have a good understanding throughout the whole story. Afterwards, we would then hold a discussion about the story and go over a few of the guided questions that I've come up with together as a class. So we go over some asking such as, why does the narrator call the bit wild and senseless? What are classics? How do they differ from novels of light character? So basically, using some of these questions to help with them to get a better idea of what they've comprehended within the text. I would then either have them choose a partner or they could work by themselves. They have that option of going over about 30 different questions and answering half of them. And I'd give them time within class so that we could work together if they had any questions or they wanted to work with partners so they could bounce ideas off each other. And I would have them work within the following day to make sure that they had time to reread the story again to get a better idea, a better comprehension of the story. And then turn that in the following block period as we have rotating days. So if we had the class on a Monday, I'd have them turn this in on a Wednesday. We're giving them a lot of time in class on both days by the end of the period, so that it's clear. And if they're still confused about some of it, we can clarify that within class. And so this is basically, like I said, some of the strategies that I would employ for a problematic text that I see that would be challenging, but using these different strategies to cope so they could comprehend it somewhat more easily by breaking down into these different uses of the strategies. So I appreciate your time, and I will see you later in class.